Success shouldn't feel this exhausting. If you're winning on paper, but burning out behind the scenes, you aren't failing. You're stuck in a psychological bottleneck called a hurdle of stop. I've been there. On the outside, things look great, but I was secretly burning out, convinced I was just lucky, and waiting to be exposed as a fraud. I realized I didn't have a business problem. I had a mindset block. Whether it's imposter syndrome, perfectionism, or fear or failure, these aren't just feelings. They are growth bottlenecks. Identify your specific hurdle and get one immediate action step to regain your momentum today. Go to tuepodcast.net/quiz. That's tuepodcast.net/quiz to take the 3-minute assessment and get your report now. This is an Undiscovered Legacy production and proud member of Pod Nation Media Network. Hello, Skoob believers, and welcome to episode number 113 of the Undiscovered Entrepreneur. And it's me, Skoob, coming at you whatever device you happen to be listening on. All right, so first of all, I want to talk about that special announcement that I talked about in my last episode. It is time for that special announcement. So I have created a special questionnaire just for you Skoob believers out there to find out which one of the 4 hurdles of stop is affecting you the most. So if you take this quiz, it only takes like 3 minutes and you'll get results right away. I love this thing. I hope you get to use it. Find out which hurdle hurts you the most and steps on how to overcome it by taking the questionnaire. If you go to tuepodcast.net/find out, that's FINDOUT, you can find out which one of the 4 hurdles of stop is stopping you from getting across the start line. Also, by the time this recording goes out, this next week will be my first speaking engagement at the 54th Global Live Speaker Summit, where the topic's going to be power, privilege, and purpose, voices of the underrepresented. I'm really excited about this. And if you go to YouTube and subscribe to Global Speakers Talk, you could actually see that coming up on July 26th, 2025. So I'm really excited to do that. And hopefully what I could do here is get a recording for you so you can actually listen to it in the podcast if you don't get around to doing that. So looking forward to hopefully seeing you there. Now, today's episode, we're talking to Nathan, or as his friends call him, Nate. Nate's entrepreneurial journey is nothing short of remarkable. At just 25, he was writing speeches delivered on the floors of the United Nations as Israel's chief speechwriter. But by age 28, he made the bold leap to start his own PR firm. Today, he runs Miller Incorporated, a 20-person crisis communication powerhouse with offices in LA, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C., serving 60 to 70 clients monthly and establishing themselves as one of the leading crisis management firms in the country. In this episode, Nathan reveals how boxing 3 times a week taught him the ultimate entrepreneurial skill, staying completely relaxed while someone's trying to punch you in the face. Discover the shocking story of how Nathan's team nearly fell victim to an unenforceable contract with outrageous late fees, and how his hard-earned experience saved them thousands. Nathan explains how 13 years of building his brand has transformed every business conversation from "who are you?" to "how can we work together?" So, Skoob believers, let's listen to Nate. Are you ready to unlock your entrepreneur potential? Are you ready to break free from all the barriers holding you back? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Undiscovered Entrepreneur, your first step in getting across the start line. I'm your host and guide, Skoob, and I'm here with one mission: to help you overcome the obstacles standing between you and the start of your adventure. Whether you're dreaming of launching a startup, creating the next big app, or turning your passion into a thriving business, this podcast is your launchpad. Together we'll navigate the challenges, overcome hidden boundaries that stop us from starting, and learn how to overcome them with the help of others and experience them right along with you. So are you ready to take that crucial step to transform from aspiring to inspiring? Then let's get across that start line together, right here, right now, on the Undiscovered Entrepreneur. Salutations, Skoob believers, and we are here again with another amazing entrepreneur. Today we're here with Nathan. Hey, Nathan, how you doing?
I'm great. Great to be here.
Great. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to be on the Undiscovered Entrepreneur, get across the start line. I super appreciate your time.
It's really my pleasure.
So before we go any further here, I have a semi-serious question to ask you. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Are you a Skoob believer?
Of course I am, Jesse. So I'm here because I'm a Skoob believer. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. Thank you so much for being a Skoob believer. I super appreciate you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So right here at the beginning, I like to kind of get an idea of, we know you're Nathan, but we want to know who you are, what your entrepreneur adventure is, and how you got across the start line in your entrepreneur adventure.
I'm Nathan Miller. My friends call me Nate. I was raised in Southern California. Early in my career, worked at the intersection of public policy and communications. I was in Europe at a think tank, and then I spent some time at a local PR firm here in LA. Had a couple other jobs, and then in 2010, I became the chief speechwriter for Israel's mission to the United Nations when I was 25, which is a crazy, big, exciting job. I did that for 3 years, and towards the end of that experience, I had a girlfriend who is now my wife and mother of my 3 kids, who was in LA and wanted me to come back here, and my family's still here. I thought I wanted to stay on the East Coast or go somewhere else. I was really unsure, but I started looking at jobs in LA. I was 28 at this point, and there wasn't any jobs that I was particularly excited about, and decided that at that moment that there was an opportunity in the communications market. This was 2013, where I thought that a small, scrappy 28-year-old kid could have an opportunity to create a different kind of PR firm. When I was a freshman in college, Facebook came out. So I was at this bridge generation. I saw the environment changing. It's changed dramatically since then. I hung my own shingle, started looking for clients. It took me 5-6 months before I got $1 in my account. It took me at least a couple of years to really get in a steady rhythm of clients and building an agency. Today, I run Miller Inc. We have a team here in LA and San Francisco and Washington, D.C. We're about 20 folks, and we have about any given month, 60, 70 clients. And we're one of the leading crisis communications shops in the country. We have other business areas. We work in public affairs, technology. We do a lot of work in the nonprofit space. My wife now runs a sister agency that does philanthropic advisory and has a tech product. There's a lot of different things, but I've been on this journey for the last 13 years, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's really a very gratifying thing to be your own boss and to build your own business, but not without challenges.
That's amazing. I love how you started out in one thing and it was like, okay, this is my situation. I don't like my situation, so I'm going to make my own situation to where it benefits me in the end and helps other people at the same time.
That's right. Every job, whether you're an employee or an employer, every job has its cross to bear, and you just have to decide which cross you want to bear. I have a problem with authority, have control, and I was willing to stomach all of the burdens, and there are a lot of significant ones in becoming an entrepreneur. I went from a pretty prestigious job. I was writing speeches that were being delivered every day on the floors of the UN and overseeing a big global media strategy. The next week, I was scrounging for gigs. My first client was a high school fashion show. So it was a pretty big departure, but I was just as happy to do it because I knew that it was in service of a vision of something bigger that I was building towards. But you got to have a lot of humility, and you've got to be able to be flexible and resilient in order to make that transition.
There's nothing wrong with taking on the small stuff first, even if it doesn't seem like it's a big prestigious thing in the very beginning. But it's those little reps that you take to get underneath your belt to kind of understand what you're trying to accomplish, that you can actually tell people, hey, I've actually done this, and build it up from there.
It's so true. And business is harder than you think. So many people come into the work that we do And folks they have this big sense of, oh, I'm a big important person and I should do X, Y, and Z. And there's no job in the store that I haven't done. I have a big team now that does a bunch of different things, but there's nothing. I just took out the trash before I came in here in our office. We have a janitor and everything. I saw the trash needed to get taken out. I took it out. I think really great entrepreneurs, you do have to learn how to delegate and everything else, but you have to have a willingness to do whatever it takes and to not have such a big ego that you say, I can't do X, Y, or Z. Especially at the beginning, you've got to be willing to dig in and sometimes do work that you wouldn't necessarily have done if you were employed by somebody else.
Well, you got to wear the hats. You really should be able to wear any hat in your business, even if it's just for a short while to cover cover a problem that might arise.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you use that information that you could pass on to somebody who's going to take on that responsibility, and you could say, hey, I've done this before, and you have some kind of relatability instead of having somebody say, okay, well, I read about this. This is what you have to do. It's a whole different ballgame to be able to wear that hat for a certain amount of time and then pass on the information.
That's totally right. And obviously you can't do everything, but I try to teach myself as much as I can about any particular job, whether I'm dealing with my accountant, my lawyer, my IT team. It doesn't really matter. All of those jobs kind of become ultimately, if that person makes them, it's a mindset shift. But if that person makes a mistake, we had a situation here recently. There was a contract that someone on my team signed that had an unenforceable provision, which had a crazy late fee payment. It was like $200 a day on a late fee. And we had this vendor we worked with for the first time and was trying to enforce this provision that was unenforceable. But I knew that my team members came to me and they were like all freaked out. They said, oh, we have this big bill now. I said, guys, let's just stop and look at this. And so it's just understanding how do you navigate any particular situation. The more experience that you have, things that really freaked me out when I first started this business no longer rattle me at all. You just sort of get when you've confronted a situation, there's no substitute for that. And part of being an entrepreneur is having to confront a lot of new situations every day and getting comfortable being uncomfortable and being unfamiliar.
Well, you got to be able to make those shifts in what you're doing to keep things going the way they are, and being able to show people that you have that capability of doing and being that leader that most people need to know. Here, let's stop and think about this for a second. And then, oh, okay, I see the problem here. And let's take those learnings as we go along. So when you come across something similar, you know what to do from that point on.
That's right.
All right.
No, I box 3 times a week. And for me, there's no greater training for being an entrepreneur than that. And one of the big things you learn in the ring is learning how to just be really relaxed when someone's trying to punch you in the face. And I know that sounds crazy, but I do that in the morning and I come in and anything after there is downhill, but you learn how to really relax. And I think that's the key, is to keep your cool, to not get emotional about things, to be able to look at things in an objective manner and make good, cool-headed decisions. That's the key to successful entrepreneurship, especially at the beginning.
I love how you compartmentalize boxing, which I never really thought about, with entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I'm going to be honest with you, Nathan. I wouldn't have pegged you as a boxer, but here you are learning and doing that. And I guess if that's what it takes for you to relax and understand things, then hey, that's what you got to do.
It's great exercise, and it also you learn a lot of lessons in the ring. I can tell someday I'll write a book about that, but connecting the two, because I do think there's so much about life and business you can learn from how when you're in that moment, understanding how your brain and your body and they're all connected, and how in your emotional response, being able to really have control over it, and it's so helpful.
Nathan, I think it's a great idea. That's definitely a book I would put my hand in for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we'll talk. We could talk about that off the air. Okay. So when you come across new entrepreneurs, what do you think stops them from getting started in their entrepreneurial venture? We've talked about a couple of things offline, but what do you think stops most entrepreneurs from getting started?
I think people you have to get comfortable with risk and uncertainty. And most people are not good with risk and uncertainty. And the reality is, I'm in the working crisis management all day. So all I do is deal with risk and uncertainty. And so I'm comfortable with it. but there's no guarantees in the world. We live in the Pacific Palisades, and my house just burned down.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Appreciate that. But I said to my wife, our house was located at the edge of right on the bluffs. So she had gotten more fire insurance like 6 months before our house burned down, which was great, very lucky. But I said to her, but if our house burns down, the whole Palisades will burn down. And I was right. But I said that as if I never thought that the whole Palisades couldn't burn down. Of course, that's wrong. So you have to always, there's no guarantees being an entrepreneur. You go to bed every night with the understanding that it could all fall apart in the morning, and that will be your responsibility to pick it up. So it's taking on a big onus of responsibility, uncertainty, and risk. I think that's a lot. And it's just like another layer of obligation above being an employee of a company. And I think that's hard for most people to make that mental leap.
It really is. But there's always risk involved. If you could calculate the risk, that's good if you can do that. But not everything is going to be calculated. There's going to be things that you come across that you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And now it becomes a learning process at that point.
Yeah, it does. It's getting comfortable with that risk and uncertainty. That's one thing. I also think you have to have a real deep belief in yourself and your own abilities. And it's a confidence thing. And I think you've got to have that sense. I was fortunate in the sense that I started my business before I had a mortgage, before I had kids, at a time when I had a little more flexibility to fail. And I knew that I had the ability to not make any income for some time. It wasn't a huge amount of time, but 5-6 months. And then I still was not making that much money for a while. And having that confidence to keep doing it on month 5 when you still don't have anything in the bank and being like, this is going to work out. I'm going to be okay. The earlier you're able to do that in some ways, the better. I know everybody obviously is in a different situation, but it would have been a lot more stressful if I had 3 kids at home and I knew that I had this real responsibility to others in terms of that. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, that's why I always enjoy coming across young entrepreneurs. I'm going to have, he's going to be on my podcast. I'm actually doing the interview today. He's 14 years old.
Oh my God.
And he's in Pakistan. He's starting a business, and I can't wait for this conversation with him. It's going to be great. I also talked to another 15-year-old kid who dealt with NFTs at the time, and now he's touring the world doing speeches talking to young entrepreneurs like him. So I always have a little soft spot in my heart for the young generation and them starting early because they have the most time.
I had the ability to fail for years when I started this company. And now I'm turning 40 next month. And those early years in the business are invaluable because I made mistakes that I won't make again. And I learned things that I needed to learn. But it took those reps and that time invested. And I had the space to do it. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, that's amazing. We got to put in the reps, just like you said, so we can understand what we're doing. Because it's simple, but it's definitely not easy. I mean, that's a whole different kind of ball of wax right there. I mean, if it was simple, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So
it's a different layer of responsibility that unless you've done it, it's very hard to explain it.
Yeah.
You're responsible for the livelihoods of everybody that works for you. Their challenges become your challenges. Their successes become your successes. You're responsible for your customers. And anytime something happens in the world, it's probably going to affect you in some way. And you've got to be always thinking about all those different things as they're moving. How is this going to affect our business? And how do I be an effective leader? And how am I going to anticipate how these changes in the economy, technology, the industry that we work in, where are the opportunities in that change and where are the challenges and where are the things that we have to address and mitigate?
Well, just like you were saying a little bit earlier, you watched Facebook come about, so did I. And we saw the changes in Facebook and that kind of thing. So we had to change along with it. And now the newest thing happening right now is AI. So we're definitely going to be making some changes along those aspects too.
Right, absolutely. My business is unrecognizable from when I started. In PR, we've watched the decline of the mediated model, where it used to be the only way to reach a broad audience was to go through the media. and you had to engage them. And that's still one way to reach an audience. But now everybody is a publisher and everybody has the opportunity to reach directly to an audience, just like we're having this conversation. As strategic communications professionals, how are we leveraging all the different tools in the toolbox and understanding things that go? AI is definitely another thing that we're thinking about now. And if you're not one step ahead, you're going to be very far behind. And there's a lot of legacy PR firms doing legacy work for clients that don't know better yet, but they're going to figure it out pretty soon. And those people are going to have trouble keeping up and staying in business.
Yeah, you really have to understand how to be found through the AI world now, because that's basically where all the search is going now. Google searching is starting to go down, AI searching is starting to go up. So we got to understand how we could differentiate ourselves in that particular aspect so we can be found through AI. All right. So I'm going to make a little bit of a shift here. I'm sure you've been in a couple podcasts and they always ask you, what's your hardest pitfall? What was your hardest problem? What did you come across here? And that kind of thing. I like to put a little bit of a twist on it. And what I'd like to know here is, what is your hardest pitfall that you're most proud of? Because every once in a while we come across a pitfall or a problem, and the outcome of that was so positive, and you learn something so new that it really sticks out in your head. Have you ever come across anything like that, Nathan? Or Nate?
I'm just thinking, what would my best answer for that be? The biggest pitfall I'm most proud of, I think that I'm going to give you a couple answers. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're here for it.
So, first thing I would say is it's really important as a manager, as a leader, to do two things. One is to be really direct with the folks who work with you and set expectations and reinforce expectations and have be a clear communicator to your team so they understand, here's what our goal is as an organization, here's what our goal is for you, and to reinforce that over time. I think that's really important. At the same time, I've learned to give folks grace, if there's not a better word for that, but give people the benefit of the doubt and understand that when you're invested in a company and you're so deeply connected to it and it's so personal for you, especially when you're just starting out, you really take it all very personally. But to give things a little space, and when things don't go perfectly with your team, or when someone isn't performing at the highest level, to look at things, don't look at their best day or their worst day, but what is their average performance? And how do people are not machines, they're humans. And so to give them the benefit of the doubt, and the same thing is true for vendors, partners, anybody else that you're doing business with, have that perspective, I think is extremely important. I'm a lot more mellow in some ways than I was when I started. And I think it shows confidence and security. I'm just thinking about one thing that I really did wrong, which I don't do anymore when I first started. When I first started, I hired some of the wrong people. What I've learned is in an agency business, your people are your superpower. My ability to be successful is 100% directly connected to the people who I hire to sit in the chairs at our agency, in understanding how important it is to take the time to hire the right people. And when people aren't a fit for whatever reason, figuring that out quickly with them and for you. And it doesn't do anybody any favors unless you get to that understanding quickly. And that's a hard lesson for many folks, because when your name's on the door of an agency, everything becomes, a lot of people take things very personally and they're very connected to everything and it's sort of having a more global view of where you're trying to go as a business and understand. I think that's really important. And that's hard, especially for younger entrepreneurs. Having children has been great for me as a manager, because you sort of learn how to be a little more balanced and measured, and how do you respond to certain things, and understand how to be self-critical. And then the other thing I think it's really important is having the ability to take feedback from your team and from others in a way that is really understanding that every piece of feedback is actually really valuable. Now, people aren't always right. Sometimes they can be wrong, but there's nothing more valuable for you as a leader than being able to understand how your decisions are, what the impacts of your decision, or at least how that's being perceived, and being able to do that, I think is really important.
Getting that feedback is positive, whether it doesn't seem positive at that particular moment, because it sounds like they're they're trying to be negative, but at the same time, well, wait a minute, why are we thinking this way, or why are they thinking this way? And is this something that I'm starting to see across the board? Maybe this is something I do need to change. So
Yeah.
getting feedback from other people isn't necessarily a completely bad thing.
It's a great thing. There's nothing more important. It's being able to, on the one hand, have the deep conviction and strength that you are the right person for this job, and your company has something to offer, and being 100% determined to carry on and move forward on the one hand, having that, but then being able to depersonalize that from on a day-to-day level, and having a global view, and you're not taking things so personally or being so emotionally attached to any particular outcome, but just being a little more balanced. I think great entrepreneurs are able to do that.
Exactly. And one thing I always hear about this, and this coincides with what you're talking about, is to hire slow and fire fast.
Yeah.
Take your time with these people. Make sure that they coincide with what you're trying to accomplish. Make sure their goals are similar, and make sure you know what their goals are, not just for working with the company, but what their personal goals are. Because if you can connect with them that way too, they're going to be more respectful to you, because they're to help them, not just so much as in the business itself, but on a personal level too, because you know that they're humans too, and they have their goals and wants and needs
100%.
too.
You have to be aligned. And I always do that in every interview. Our interview process has gotten a lot more complicated over the years. We added a writing sample. We added a timed writing sample. We've added different steps in the process based on things we learned along the way. And I think the hiring is a totally critical thing.
And I like the fact that we're not corporate companies owned right now. We're on the smaller side, but we can use that to our advantage of being understanding and taking that breath. And if there's a problem with the person that's working for us, we can sit down and actually talk to them one-on-one. Yeah. Instead of, when you look at these huge corporations that are out there, there's no way that's going to happen.
I have such an advantage in my field compared to the big corporate owned firms, because I'm here every day. I'm building a company that I want to work at, and I'm in the work every day. I'm seeing people, I'm understanding things. I'm really invested. It's very hard for a bigger company to instill that in the people who are on the front lines every day. It's just not usually the same. Not always the case, but usually that's the case.
Right, exactly. You said you've been doing this for what, 14 years, you said, altogether?
13 years in my own business, longer in the field.
Right. What do you think is one of your greatest accomplishments? What do you think one of your greatest accomplishments is at this point?
We have so many big client wins. There's a few things I'm really proud of. I have a great network of alumni, people who've come work at our firm who are doing incredible things all over, like companies and other agencies. And I'm really proud of our alumni and the people we've trained and built, and cultivated their careers. There are many people here who I've watched grow. And that's for me something I'm really proud of. Our company purchased an office building this year, the brick wall you see behind me. We just moved, it's fresh for me because we moved here this month, and we've built this very cool creative office space that will cultivate collaboration, the ability to do events with our clients and others. And that for me is it's just a really exciting thing after 13 years that we're at this place. And I think our reputation is the thing that when you call around in the vertical that we work in, we're known. We've built a brand and a reputation as a firm that delivers for clients, that cares, that's creative, out of the box. A reputation is invaluable. There's nothing that's more important. And that's built over time through thousands and thousands of different interactions and successes and wins. For me, that is everything. And that's really the value of, there's nothing more valuable than brand identity and reputation.
It makes a really big difference when you're more of a household name, that people understand who you are.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get to that point, but when you do finally get to that point, it really gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling in your chest. Oh, yeah, I remember Nate. I remember, yeah, for sure. Let's work with him.
There's no shortcut for that, unfortunately. I know what it was like when I first started, when I was a relative unknown on every single call, versus now when I have a reputation on almost every call that I go on. And it becomes much, much easier to operate, get new business, attract talent. Everything you do as a company, if you build a good reputation and you do good work, If you don't, and you have a bad reputation, it's even harder than if you're an unknown. Business is a repeat game. It's a long-term game. And the seeds you plant today are what grow into things tomorrow. And you get the compounding value of every single action that you take, positive or negative. If you piss people off and you get in a dispute or you do a bad job for a customer, then all the negativity that comes from that, you don't know what it's going to be in the future, but it could be significant. On the other hand, if you do a good job, you delight a customer, you take care of your employees, build good relationships in the community, whatever it is, those sprout into other positive things. So it's really an important thing to keep in mind.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So Nathan, when in your comings and goings, I'm sure every once in a while you come across a new entrepreneur that's just getting started. So when you do, what kind of piece of advice do you give them? What steps would you have them take when they're just getting started?
I always say, it's a basic thing when people always think about it. For a business to be successful, somebody has to pay you money for something that you do, and they have to believe that it's worth the value of whatever they're paying you. I think a lot of these different companies don't necessarily, people, especially in tech or even in my business, they have an unrealistic sense of what that is. But what is the skill or the product that you're delivering that has a value proposition for a customer that they're willing to pay? And that sounds simple, but people sometimes don't do that thinking ahead of time. They think about, oh, I think it'd be fun to do X, Y, or Z. It doesn't matter what would be fun for you. What matters is, do you have a customer that's going to pay the price that you think that you need to be paid for this business to be viable? So that's one thing. And then I say it's going to be harder than you think it's going to be, but it'll also be more rewarding. And you've got to be prepared to have the strength and the resilience to navigate through. When I started my business, I thought I had 3 clients out the gate. All 3 of them didn't work out when I opened my doors. So that is, and you just have to be ready to pivot and navigate that challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's going to be hard when you first get started. It is, because you're getting into unknown territory.
Totally.
So it's going to be constantly educating yourself, having the mindset that this is going to happen, but it's okay that it happens. And going on from there and just seeing where you end up. And yeah, sometimes you have to pivot. Sometimes you have to make a little bit of a change. But ultimately, having the right mindset to be able to make that change is really what makes you who you are.
That's exactly right.
And one thing I come across too, especially just starting out, people tend to pay themselves. They're afraid to put a money value out there that's too high. And what you got to realize is people's perception of value is going to be directly affected by what you charge. If I had go ahead.
It's always, if you can be a premium product, now you have to justify being a premium product and explain to people why you are, but it's always a better thing to be that than to be a commodity. But you have to have a good sense of the market, and sometimes you have to test the market and see where it really is. You won't know until you try. And you're right, if you don't value yourself, other people certainly won't either.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I was to do a coaching and I said, I'll do it for $10, what kind of value do you think you're going to get out of that? You're going to get $10 worth of coaching. Is it even worth the time?
Yeah.
But if I have that same coaching, I talk to a different person, say it's $300 or $400. Now there's something there. That not only is there a pretty good amount of skin in the game, but I have a value that I can offer you that seems a lot better. And that's just a perception of it. So Nathan, I have a tradition that I have here on the podcast. What I'd like to know here is, do you have a goal for yourself for the next 6 months? Where do you see you and your company in the next 6 months? You got the building now. We see it right behind you there.
We have a building here. We're going to be expanding our operations on the East Coast. We're adding some team there, which is really exciting. We're continuing to solidify and grow in some key verticals. And that is it for me. It's the journey, not the destination. Every day is a new kind of challenge. And I'm always just thinking, how do we continue to build a better, more dynamic team? How do we train our people better? How do we deliver in a bigger way for clients? And I really delight in that. I'm not building this agency to quickly sell it. I'm building this to live in it, to grow it, to continue to refine it, and to navigate every year, which is going to be filled with different ups and downs and challenges and exciting opportunities. And that's what I love about what I do.
Fantastic. So what I'd like to do with you, Nathan, if it's okay with you, in 6 months, I'd like to have another interview just like this one.
Great.
and just see where you've ended up in the last 6 months and go from there. Do you think that's okay?
Let's do it, man. I'd love it.
Fantastic. Because now you're not just accountable to me, but you're accountable to all my Skoob believers.
All your listeners. I love it. I think that's great.
All right. All right, Nathan, this is your time to shine. This is the time where I want you to kind of advertise yourself a little bit, how we get a hold of you and your services. Okay, ready, set, go.
I love it. You can reach us at Miller Inc. That's MILLERINK.com. Ink with a K, like the tattoo parlor, except we're a PR firm. Definitely reach out, check out our case studies, and if you need help in the field of strategic communications, PR, available to help. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right. Yeah, thanks for being on the show, Nathan. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and we'll see you in 6 months, okay?
All right. Thanks a lot, Jesse.
All right, Skoob believers, make sure you stay tuned for the wrap-up. Okay, everybody, thank you. Bye-bye. All right, Skoob believers, that was Nate. What a great conversation we had with Nate. I really liked him being able to kind of put together boxing and entrepreneurship. I thought that was awesome. But I do have a couple of major takeaways in this episode I'd like to talk to you a little bit about. Embrace humble beginnings by staying flexible. Your first client might be a high school fashion show when you're used to writing speeches for the United Nations, but every small step builds a foundation for something greater. The willingness to do whatever it takes, from taking out the trash to wearing every hat in your business. It separates successful entrepreneurs from those who let ego stand in the way. Turn your risk into a competitive edge. While most people fear uncertainty and avoid risk, entrepreneurs who learn to stay calm under the pressure, like staying relaxed while someone's punching you in the face, develop an unshakable confidence that becomes their superpower. Remember that your reputation and your relationships are built one interaction at a time, over years, creating compound value that no shortcut can replace. And with that, Skoob believers, thank you very much. Make sure you check out in the show notes. You can check out my questionnaire that I have waiting for you. And I will see you in the next episode. All right, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye. And there you have it, future entrepreneurs. We've taken another step towards our journey to get across that start line. Remember, every great business starts with a single idea and the courage to pursue it. You've already shown that courage by joining us here today. As we wrap up this episode of the Undiscovered Entrepreneur, I want to remind you that the start line isn't as far away as you might think. With each bit of knowledge you gain, each fear you face, you're getting closer to launching your dream. Until our next episode together, keep pushing, keep dreaming, and most importantly, keep taking those steps across the start line. They'll all add up to big strides in your entrepreneur adventure. This is Skoob, your guide across the start line. Remember, your future is waiting. I can, I am, I will, and I'm doing it today. Hello, Skoob believers. Let me ask you a real quick question. How many cups of coffee have you had today? 3, 5, 7? And let me guess, you've got a Red Bull in the other hand just in case, right? Yeah, I see you. Now, here's the truth bomb nobody wants to hear. You're not building a business. You're building a caffeine dependency. Listen, I get it. When you're grinding 12, 14, 16-hour days, you're building something from nothing. When you've got payroll to meet, investors to impress, and visions that won't wait. You need fuel. But what if I told you that the fuel that you're using is actually slowing you down? What if the very thing that you think is keeping you sharp is actually making you dull? Enter Rise Coffee. This isn't your grandma's mushroom tea. This isn't some hippie wellness trend. This is science meets performance. And here's what makes Rise different. Less than half the caffeine of a regular cup of coffee. But here's the kicker. You won't miss it. 6 organic powerhouse mushrooms, including cordyceps, what Olympic athletes use, and lion's mane, what Silicon Valley biohackers swear by. Sustained energy that doesn't spike and crash. We're talking smooth, clean power from morning to moonlight. Crystal clear focus without the jitters. Imagine closing the deal with calm, confident mind instead of the caffeine chaos. Gut health and immune support, because what's the point of building an empire if you're too sick to enjoy it? So here's the challenge to you. Stop borrowing energy from tomorrow. Stop running on fumes and call it a hustle. Stop wearing your caffeine addiction like a badge of honor. Real entrepreneurs optimize, real entrepreneurs adapt, real entrepreneurs win. You can't win if you're crashing at 2 p.m. while your competition is just getting started. Break the cycle. Head to ricesuperfoods.com right now and use code PODNA15 for 50% off your first order. That's PODNA15 for 15% off. Try it for 30 days. If you don't feel the difference, if you don't feel sharper, calmer, more focused, more alive, then go back to your 6-a-day cup habit. But I'm telling you, we won't, because once you feel what real energy feels like, you'll never go back. Ditch the addiction, fuel your empire, and rise up. Rise Coffee, energy that builds, not burns.